For the longest time, we thought we had the whole story of civilization figured out. It was a nice, neat timeline. First, we learned to farm, then we built cities, and then, with all that settled, we created religion. But then archaeologists found something on a remote hilltop in Turkey that didn't just add a new chapter to the story, tore the whole book apart. So let's get into it, because this place, Göbekli Tepe, isn't just another ruin. It might just be ground zero for history itself. So, here's the story you probably learned in school, right? First comes agriculture, that lets people stop wandering and settle down. Once you have towns, you have the time and resources to get organized and build big temples. Makes sense. It's logical, but Göbekli Tepe completely flips that upside down. It suggests the real story was the exact opposite. I mean, just think about that for a second. What if the big push that got humanity to organize, to build, to create society wasn't about filling our bellies, but about something? What if the very first catalyst wasn't a new way to get food, but a powerful, shared idea about the universe? That's the absolutely radical question that Göbekli Tepe puts on the table. To really get how wild this is, you have to understand how impossible this place should be. When German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt started digging here back in 1994, he uncovered a temple complex that by all counts just shouldn't exist. Not then, not there. I mean, just look at this timeline. Göbekli Tepe clocks in at around 9,500 BC. That makes it over 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. It's 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramids. This isn't just ancient. This is so far back it's almost mythical. The era this comes from is called the pre-pottery Neolithic, and the name says it all. This was before pottery, before anyone had domesticated animals, before metal tools. They didn't even have the wheel. The thinking was, people back then were just small, nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers moving from place to place, just trying to get by. Building something on a monumental scale was thought to be completely out of the question. And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How did they pull this off? How could people who were supposedly just wandering around hunting and gathering with nothing but stone tools manage to create something so massive, so complex, and so sophisticated? This one question has sent shockwaves through archaeology. Well, the answers, or at least the first big clues, are carved right into the stones themselves. The site is this incredible collection of massive circular structures, and each one is just a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. And the absolute stars of the show are these giant T-shaped pillars. They are the heart and soul of Göbekli Tepe. You find them arranged in these huge circles, like silent figures watching, with two even bigger ones standing in the center of each ring. And we're not just talking about a handful of these things. Using ground-penetrating radar, archaeologists have found over 200 of these monoliths, spread across at least 20 different enclosures. And get this, that's just what they've found so far. The vast majority of the site is still completely buried. These things are just huge. Some of them are 6 meters tall, that's nearly 20 feet, and weigh up to 20 tons. And each one was carved from a single, solid piece of limestone. But archaeologists are pretty sure they're not just pillars. T-shape, it's believed to be a stylized human form. On some of them, you can even make out carvings of arms, hands, and loincloths. It's like these are giant statues of someone or something. Ancestors maybe, or even their gods. And they're just covered in these amazing carvings. We're talking foxes, boars, snakes, vultures, a whole prehistoric zoo. But these aren't friendly animals from a storybook. No, a lot of them are depicted as aggressive, snarling with bared teeth, like they're ready to attack. It gives you this glimpse into a spiritual world that was probably pretty frightening and powerful. So, how on earth did they do this with just stone? Well, they were absolute masters of their craft. They used tools made from flint, and get this, obsidian. Obsidian is a volcanic glass that you can flake into an edge that is literally 7 times sharper than a surgeon's steel scalpel. This wasn't primitive hacking. This was precise, patient, masterful work. Now, a place this old and this mysterious, you know it's going to attract some wild theories. So let's try to separate some of the more speculative ideas from what the actual evidence on the ground tells us. So, one of the big ones you hear a lot, especially online, is that Göbekli Tepe was some kind of ancient observatory. The idea is that the pillars are aligned with the stars, maybe specifically to track Sirius, which is the brightest star in the night sky. And you know it's a cool idea. It really is. But it just doesn't check out. Scientists ran detailed simulations of what the sky would have looked like from that exact spot. 12,000 years ago, and the results. The pillars don't align with Sirius or any other major star in any way that makes sense. So whatever secrets this place holds, the answer isn't up in the sky. But the real rituals, well, they might have been even weirder and honestly, a little macabre. Archaeologists have found pieces of human skulls at the site, and they have these deep, intentional cuts carved into them after the person died. It points to some kind of skull cult, a powerful belief system focused on ancestor worship, where maybe the skulls of important people were decorated and put on display. Okay, so forget star maps. What we have instead is hard evidence for a complex, intense, and deeply spiritual belief system. A belief system so powerful, it could get hundreds of people to work together on a building project that probably took generations to complete. And all of this leads to the single most revolutionary idea to come out of this entire discovery. A simple phrase from the man who uncovered it, Klaus Schmidt, that changes everything we thought we knew. First came the temple, then the city. This is the new playbook, the new origin story for civilization, proposed by Göbekli Tepe. It didn't start with a surplus of grain. It started with a shared belief, an idea so powerful it brought people together. To serve that idea, they built a great temple. Building that temple required them to stay in one place, which led to the first settlements. And finally, to feed everyone who was now living there, they had to figure out a better way to get food. And so, agriculture was born. Religion wasn't a result of society. It was the cause. So when you put it all together, what you're looking at is so much more than the world's oldest temple. It might actually be the place where society itself was invented. You could call it history's 0 point. But this story has one last, absolutely mind-bending twist. Around 8,000 BC, after being used for 1,500 years, the people of Göbekli Tepe did something unbelievable. They intentionally buried the entire complex. On purpose, they backfilled their sacred circles with tons and tons of earth, creating the very hill that protected it for millennia. Why? Why would you bury your own cathedral? Honestly, we have no idea. And maybe the most jaw-dropping fact of all is this number. Everything we've just discussed, every history-rewriting discovery, has come from excavating just 5% of the site. That's it. I mean, that's the ultimate cliffhanger, right? If just this tiny slice of Göbekli Tepe has completely changed our understanding of human history, what else is waiting down there? What secrets are in the other 95%, just waiting to be discovered? The story of who we are is far from over.